Hello viewers, in our session today we shall be discussing the overview of the Consumer Protection Act 1986, plus we shall be covering all the amendments after 2004 that have taken place in the Act, the provisions and the rules. Let us discuss the Consumer Protection Act, its background first. The Consumer Protection Act 1986, enacted to provide for the better protection of the interest of consumer. Act applies to whole of India except Jammu and Kashmir. Chapters 1st, 2nd and 4th came into force on 15th of April 1987. Chapter 3rd came into force on 1st of July 1987. The Act was amended in 2002 and the amendments came into force with effect from 15th of March 2003. Now let us have an understanding of the Act by studying its introduction. The Consumer Protection Act 1986 is an act of the Parliament of India enacted in 1986 to protect the interest of consumers in India. It extends to the whole of India except the state of Jammu and Kashmir. This act is applied to all goods and services. It shall come into force through central government by notifications for different provisions of this act. Let us try to know the objectives of the act. The objective of this act highlight the better protection of interest of the consumers, protection of the rights of the consumers. The rights of the consumer would include the following: the right to be protected against marketing of goods which are hazardous to life and property, the right to be informed about the quality, quantity, potency, purity, standard and price of goods to protect the consumers against unfair trade practices. To sum it all, it means that a consumer who is an innocent person paying the price value for the goods or services that he is going to enjoy, he should get what he is actually paying for, be it the right that he is going to enjoy to protect himself from hazardous or dangerous goods, or be it the quality, quantity, potency of the goods or services that he is going to enjoy. The right to be then assured wherever possible access to an authority of goods at competitive prices, the right to be heard and to be assured that consumers' interest will receive due consideration at appropriate forums, the right to seek redressal against unfair trade practices or unscrupulous exploitation of consumers, and right to consumer education. Now, these are those rights which are arising after enjoying the goods and services. It means that the goods and services that he is going to enjoy should be at the competitive prices. He should not pay a heavy price for getting the goods or services which are available at a lesser price at another place. Secondly, he should be able to heard in case he has any kind of grievance against the quality of the goods or services that he is getting before the appropriate forums, and the right to seek redressal against the unfair trade practices that are being carried on by the sellers, plus the right of consumer education. He should be regularly updated about his rights and the new trends which are coming in the market. Also, the Act includes protection by the Consumer Protection Council, quasi-judicial machinery for speedy redressal of consumer dispute. Now, let us study few definitions of the Consumer Protection Act 1986. Firstly, the consumer. Consumer is a person who buys any goods for a consideration which has been paid or promised, or partly paid and partly promised, or under any system of deferred payment and includes any user of such goods other than the person who buys such goods for consideration paid or promised or partly paid or partly promised, or under any system of deferred payment when such use is made with the approval of such person, but it does not include a person who obtains such goods for resale or for any commercial purpose. To sum it all, it means that consumer is a person who is availing the goods or services by paying a price instantly or at a future date or on a promise of payment. Plus it includes all those persons who are not directly users, but indirectly they are using either the goods or services have been gifted to them, and it shall exclude those persons who have bought the goods for a commercial purpose. For example, if I buy a car, then if I am using it and it has any kind of technical defect, then I can plead my case in the Consumer Protection Council because I am the direct consumer. But if I have a car hiring agency and I use that particular car for my business or for my vocation, then in that case I will not be getting a help from the Consumer Protection Council because I am not a direct consumer, but I am using it for my business. Now let us study a second definition of consumer. Hires or avails of any services for a consideration which has been paid or promised, or partly paid and partly promised, or under any system of deferred payment and includes any beneficiary of such services other than the person who hires or avails of the services for consideration paid or promised, or partly paid and partly promised, or under any system of deferred payment when such services are availed of with the approval of the first mentioned person. So, there is a difference in the first definition and the second definition, whereby the person who is not the direct consumer, but merely gets the goods or services from another person, he has to get the approval of the first mentioned person who actually pays for the services or the goods. Now, let us study section 2(1)(a), appropriate laboratory, which is another definition added by way of amendment. It means a laboratory or organization recognized by the central government, recognized by a state government, any laboratory or organization established by or under any law for the time being in force, which is maintained, financed or aided by the central government or state government. Another definition which has been amended is the complainant. Complainant means a consumer, any voluntary consumer association registered under the Companies Act 1956 or under any other law for the time being in force. That means it includes the new Companies Act 2013 as well. The central government or any state government who or which makes a complaint. So, complainant could be any consumer, any voluntary organization or any government, whether it is a central government or any state government which is making a complaint. One or more consumers, where there are numerous consumers having the same interest. In case of death of a consumer, his legal heir or representative. This clause has been introduced by the Consumer Protection Amendment Act 2002. So, where there is a group of consumers having or sharing the same interest or the same problem, then they can group together and file a complaint, and in case the actual consumer has deceased or has died, then his representative, which could be a legal heir, can file a complaint on his behalf. Now let us study what is a complaint. A complaint means any allegation in writing made by a complainant with a view to obtaining any relief provided by or under this Act. This allegation in writing must be that an unfair trade practice or a restrictive trade practice has been adopted by any trader or service provider. Secondly, the goods bought by him or agreed to be bought by him suffer from one or more defects. The services hired or availed of or agreed to be hired or availed by him suffer from deficiency in any respect. So, the complaint speaks of three things. Firstly, it means it is a complaint against the unfair or restrictive trade practices which could be carried on by the seller. Secondly, it talks about the goods which are suffering from any kind of damage or defect. Thirdly, it talks about the services which could be deficient in which are suffering from some deficiency. Either these services have been hired or availed or agreed to be availed of. Fourthly, a trader or the service provider, as the case may be, has charged for the goods or for the services mentioned in the complaint a price in excess of the price. Now, this price can be compared by A, which is fixed by or under any law for the time being in force, the price which is displayed on the goods or any package containing such goods, C, displayed on the price list exhibited by him by or under any law for the time being in force, the price that is agreed between the parties. So, in this we understand that the seller cannot charge what has actually been depicted or exhibited. It could be the price which is fixed by the law, it could be the price which is displayed on the packaging of the goods, or it could be the price which is displayed on the price list being exhibited at the premises of that service provider or the seller. Therefore, the trader or the service provider cannot charge more than what has been agreed between the parties. Goods which are hazardous to life and safety when used are being offered for sale to the public in contravention of any standards relating to safety of such goods as required to be complied with by or under any law for the time being in force, if the trader could have known with due diligence that the goods so offered are unsafe to the public. Therefore, the seller should see that whatever goods are being offered for sale, they are not hazardous, they are not dangerous for human consumption or use. Services which are hazardous or likely to be hazardous to life and safety of the public when used are being offered by the service provider, which such person could have known with due diligence to be injurious to life and safety. Now, let us understand what is a defect. It means any fault, imperfection or shortcoming in the quality, quantity, potency, purity or standard which is required to be maintained by or under any law for the time being in force, under any contract, express or implied, or as is claimed by the trader in any manner whatsoever in relation to any goods. Therefore, any kind of imperfection which is there in the goods or the services is a defect, be it quality, quantity, potency, utility, price, standard, anything that would amount to a defect. Now, let us try to know what is a deficiency. Deficiency means any fault, imperfection, shortcoming or inadequacy in the quality, nature and manner of performance which is required to be maintained by or under any law for the time being in force or has been undertaken to be performed by a person in pursuance of a contract or otherwise in relation to any service. So, when a particular goods or service does not reach the expected performance, it is deficiency. Whereas the person who is a consumer is paying the exact price, he does not get what is due to him. Now, let us know about the district forum. District forum means a consumer dispute redressal forum established under clause of section 9A. The next definition which has been amended is the goods. The goods as defined in the Sale of Goods Act 1930 means every kind of movable property other than actionable claims and money, and includes stock and shares, growing crops, grass and things attached to or forming the part of land which are agreed to be served before sale or under the contract of sale. Now, this definition is pertaining to the Sale of Goods Act, which means all kinds of goods which are movable are coming under the definition of goods. Even the crops that are standing on the ground, they will be covered under goods, provided they will be severed, that is, they will be removed at the time of sale. Plus, it excludes two main things, that is actionable claims and money, which are not considered as goods. In case the money is vintage coins or old currency, then they are also tradable and hence will be covered under the definition of goods. Let us know about the National Commission. National Commission means the National Consumer Dispute Redressal Commission established under clause C of section 9. The other definition is that of manufacturer. It means a person who makes or manufactures any goods or part thereof, or does not make or manufacture any goods, but assembles parts thereof made or manufactured by others, or puts or causes to be put his own mark on any goods made or manufactured by any other manufacturer. In the definition of manufacturer, the direct manufacturer is covered, plus the assembly manufacturer, that is the person who is only going to assemble the goods from various producers, will be covered. And in the third part, a person who is just going to use his own trademark or his own manufacturing logo on the product will also be considered as a manufacturer. Next definition is that of a person. It includes a firm, whether it is registered or not, a Hindu undivided family, a cooperative society, every other association of person, whether registered under the Societies Registration Act 1860. So, as we study the definition of person, it has included a firm, an individual, Hindu undivided family, a cooperative society, or any other kind of association, whether it is registered or not, but it does not include an incorporated being, that is, a company would be excluded from the definition of person. Let us try to know about the restrictive trade practice, which is one of the most often used words while a consumer complains against the seller. What is a restrictive trade practice? It means a trade practice which tends to bring about manipulation of price or conditions of delivery, or to affect flow of supplies in the market relating to goods or services in such a manner as to impose on the consumers unjustified costs or restrictions, and shall include the following. The first one being delay beyond the period agreed to by a trader in supply of such goods or in providing the services which has led or is likely to lead to rise in the price. That means, if a seller is unjustly trying to delay the provision of supply of the goods or services thereby causing the prices to hike, then the consumer will be forced to pay more than what he was supposed to pay if he had gotten the services beforehand. So, this is one of the example of restrictive trade practice. Next one being any trade practice which requires the consumer to buy, hire or avail of any goods or, as the case may be, services as condition precedent to buying, hiring or availing of other goods or services. This includes any kind of trade practice which has forced the person to avail some other kinds of services because what he had intended is not available. The word service means service of any description which is made available to potential users and includes provision of facilities in connection with banking, financing, insurance, transport, processing, supply of electrical or other energy, board or lodging or both, housing construction, entertainment, amusement or purveying of news or other information, but it does not include the rendering of any service free of charge or under a contract of personal service. So, all kinds of chargeable services will be covered, whereas free services for which the consumer is not paying anything will not be covered. Now, the definition given under spurious goods and services. It means such goods and services which are claimed to be genuine, but they are actually not so. That means they are low quality or wrong quantity of goods which are provided for consumption to the consumers. State commission means a consumer dispute redressal commission established in a state under clause B of section 9. Trader in relation to any goods means a person who sells or distributes any goods for sale and includes the manufacturer thereof, and where such goods are sold or distributed in package form, it includes the packer thereof. Thereby, a trader would mean a person who is selling or he is engaged in the act of trading the goods or services, and even just the packer of the goods will be considered as trader. Now, let us know what is a consumer dispute. Consumer dispute means where a person against whom a complaint has been made denies or disputes the allegations contained in the complaint. So, a consumer dispute would arise whenever the allegation that has been made by the consumer against the trader and that trader denies that allegation, the dispute will arise. After studying all the amended definition under the Consumer Protection Act 1986, we need to know whether this Consumer Protection Act is in derogation of any other law. So, it has been emphasized that this act is not in derogation of any other existing law. The provision of this act shall be in addition to and not in derogation of the provisions of any law for the time being in force. This act is for the protection of the consumers, and hence it is a very benevolent legislation which at various steps supports the consumer who is paying a heavy price for the goods and services that he is trying to avail. In our session today, we had discussed about the various amended definitions covering what is a national commission, what is a state commission, what are the district forums, plus we came to know about the intent of the act, the various amendments that have been made to the definitions of consumer. Also, we had done the amendments which have been made in the definition of trader, seller, complaint, complainant. All these definitions were discussed under section 2 under various subheads. With this, we conclude our today's session. Thank you.